Hello, everybody, and welcome to True Crime Banter, the podcast aimed at bringing you your dose of murder relaxation. So, just sit back and enjoy. Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the True Crime Banter podcast.
Hello.
Hi, and how's everyone doing out there? Just so fantastically great and...
Fantastically great.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think people say that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's
a
phrase that's used often.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode, and this is a case that you covered.
Yeah.
Well... How should I say it?
I researched.
I'm
kind
sorry.
of threw together
rusty.
in a little like potato salad kind of mixture, and we're just gonna go to town.
Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Enjoy
We're
this.
just gonna go ahead and get into the
Yeah.
story, I suppose. This is the case of the Jamison family.
Eufaula, Oklahoma was home to the Jamisons, a trio consisting of 44-year-old Bobby, his wife, 40-year-old Sherilyn, and their daughter, 6-year-old Madison. By all appearances, the three were a typical suburban family. They were seen spending lots of time with their daughter, but mostly kept to themselves, never causing any issues in the neighborhood. But like anyone else, there's almost always more going on behind closed doors. Back in 2003, Bobby had gotten into a pretty bad car accident, leaving him disabled and heavily reliant on prescription pain meds. He was able to walk and function, but was in pretty bad pain most of the time. As for Sherilyn, she had been diagnosed as bipolar and was prescribed medication, but with no consistent pill schedule, she was prone to severe bouts of depression and erratic mood swings. I'm not sure what Sherilyn's exact reason for being on disability was, but both of them had been receiving benefits for years, of course Bobby's being from his accident. It's October 2009, and the Jamisons were packing up their truck for a little trip. They had had their eyes on some land about a half hour away, so they were getting ready to head out. If they liked it, this 40-acre plot would be their new home. They planned on hauling a big metal storage container they owned out there and living on it, so they loaded themselves in, even bringing their treasured little dog, Maisie, with them. Now, this case is shrouded in mystery, so what happens after they leave their house isn't exactly clear, even to this day. What we do know is a man who lived up in the woods had actually seen the family that day, even telling police they were the only people he saw, and yes, he was thoroughly vetted by police. Besides this mountain man, no other witnesses have ever come forward. Fast forward about a week. A family member of the Jamisons calls police to report them missing. Nobody had seen or heard from them in days, and since the child was involved, nobody was taking any chances, and they got authorities involved. The sheriff in charge at the time, Israel Beecham, wasted no time and immediately got teams together. They took down descriptions and details, and quickly, a BOLO was issued. Shortly after, police near the Red Oak area responded, letting Eufaula police know they had seen a matching vehicle in their area for the past week or so. They headed out to see if the truck could lend any clues, but nobody was prepared for the odd scene that awaited them.
When local police approached the white truck, they weren't sure what to expect. From a distance, they couldn't see anybody inside, and once up close, discovered all the doors were locked. Peering inside, a huge sigh of relief came when nobody was in the vehicle. While this was good news, it was simultaneously not good news. A family of 3 is still nowhere to be seen. For all of you animal lovers out there, don't worry. Maisie was found alive, but very dehydrated and malnourished. They may not have located any family members, but they did not walk away empty-handed. After getting the vehicle open, they found both wallets belonging to Bobby and Sherilyn, both their phones, jackets for all 3 family members, their GPS unit, empty prescription pill bottles, an 11-page angry letter from Sherilyn to Bobby, and strangest of all, under the driver's seat in a Ziploc bag was $32,000 in cash. So obviously, none of this is a great to see left behind, but it's also very confusing. Police were dumbfounded, and once their close family was informed, so were they. Yes, all these findings were odd as hell, but the mission was to find the family, so they collected it all, but the bigger task at hand was still to locate them. Bobby and Sherilyn were known to be pretty decent when it came to the outdoors, so people were holding on to hope that they were bunkered down somewhere waiting to be rescued. Police were racking their brains, with everything left in the car and locked. Is it possible they were just headed for a small hike and got lost maybe? Or did something lure them away? Their family was adamant they wouldn't have left their precious dog behind. The search groups were growing by the day. They had people out on foot, ATVs, drones, people on horseback, even helicopters, and dozens of search dogs working tirelessly. The search continued for as long as daylight allowed, but this went on for weeks and then months with no luck. Resources started to dwindle, and the brutal winter eventually took over. With the woods revealing nothing, the investigation started focusing more on the Jamisons' home and relationships for any clues, and boy oh boy, it didn't disappoint. Speaking with family members, they find out that, for a while now, the Jamisons' marriage hadn't been doing great. The combination of Bobby's inability to work and Sherilyn's mental state was a recipe for an unhealthy home life. They had pulled Madison out of school a while ago, so the poor girl was subjected to fights and inconsistent moods on a day-to-day basis. Their family members all say they were good parents and both lived for Madison, but the atmosphere she was in just wasn't the best for her. This avenue of thinking was only backed up by Sherilyn herself in that 11-page letter found in the truck, where investigators found sentences such as, "I would not wish my daughter to be raised in foster care while you, her father, is in jail for murder and her mother dead." The letter spoke about wanting a divorce and talking poorly of Bobby's character, all of which could have been a potential motive. But motive for what? At this point, police were collecting all the information they could, hoping it would point them in any direction. They didn't know if the family was alive or not, so any information they got was being handled as, could they have used this to start over or get away? Or could this have been a motive for murder, or possibly murder-suicide? Nobody knew which way to look.
Something else investigators find out is that the Jamisons had a bit of a spirit problem. Both Bobby and Sherilyn believed their house was haunted. Even a friend said she believed something bad was in there. She said every time she visited, it felt heavy and tense, and the feeling only stopped after she left. It was one thing to believe something was in your home, but it wasn't long until they found suggestions that they were involved in otherworldly practices themselves. Police found a witch Bible in the Jamison home, but a family friend said Sherilyn had bought it as a joke. That same friend added that Sherilyn would do seances sometimes, but never took them seriously. So the severity of her interest in witchcraft or the supernatural doesn't seem to be very clear. Now, if you remember at the beginning, I mentioned a large storage container they plan on living out of. Well, that same container was covered in odd spray-painted messages, including phrases like, quote, 3 black cats killed to date by people in this area, end quote. And, quote, witches don't like their black cats killed, end quote.
Seems normal to me.
Sherilyn wasn't the only one who dabbled, though. Investigators found out that Bobby had confided in his pastor that he had been reading a satanic Bible, even asking his pastor where he could buy, quote, special bullets that kill spirits.
Okay, then.
Investigators weren't really sure where to go with this information, but they logged it away. Now, if you've heard of this case or ever looked it up, you already know the strangest part of this whole thing is the video footage. Pulling footage from the day they left their trip, it all looked normal at first. You see Sherilyn and Bobby outside in their driveway, packing for a trip, but when slowed down and observed, it gets a little wonky. For what seems like forever, Sherilyn and Bobby are seen making many trips from inside the house and back out to the truck. Sometimes they're holding something, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're taking something out of the truck, bringing it back inside, and then bringing it back out to the truck. Small things, big things, all the while making their trips separately, never once seen speaking to each other. Sometimes they would stop, stare off into the distance, before almost zombie-like walking back into the house. They were even seen coming out of the house in entirely different outfits on multiple occasions. A psychologist was brought in to examine the tapes, and while this is just an opinion, he said it looked very similar to the behavior by those who are on drugs. Close family members deny the couple were ever on drugs, but Bobby's own mom did say that she had seen her son out of it when he was on pain meds before. Nobody can really explain this behavior. While months turn to years and tips lead to dead ends, police find themselves 4 years later, in 2013, and getting a devastating call. 2 hunters in the area the Jamison's truck was found had stumbled across skeletal remains. This is the call nobody wanted, but many expected. The bones had been covered in leaves, and if they had been there this entire time, had somehow been missed by all the search teams throughout the years. Once a forensic examiner was on scene, they quickly determined the remains to be that of 2 adults and a child. The 3 skeletons had nothing left of them except the actual bones, and some were even missing. So the identity remained a mystery for 8 whole months while the labs worked on an identity with what they had left. But finally, it was confirmed the Jamisons had been found. While this answered the where portion of the investigation, the biggest question of why and how remained and still do.
That's right. This case is still unsolved after all these years. If they were murdered, their killer has either done an amazing job or seemingly just gotten extremely lucky so far. The theories that have floated in after all this time have ranged from the typical to the very not typical, however. For starters, one you may all be thinking already, murder or suicide maybe? Sherilyn was known to own a gun. Had her or Bobby waited for the perfect moment while out in the secluded woods to end everyone's lives? It does explain why nothing was brought with them. Perhaps a fight broke out, or their marital issues just became too much, and one of them didn't see another option. This might be a possibility if a gun was found at the scene, but it never was. It was also never found at the house. So where has it been all this time? I guess it's possible someone may have come along and taken the gun, but none of the remains had any bullet holes. Is it possible one of the missing bones could contain a hole? That means each body was conveniently missing bones that had bullet holes. I'm not quite sure the odds of that one. Something else that people have pointed out, which may seem small, is the fact that they were found almost 3 miles from their truck. It's not very logical to think that someone who plans on murdering their family and then killing themselves is going to walk 3 miles with a 6-year-old, not to mention Bobby's bad back didn't let him travel that far. Not comfortably, at least. The next theory is one that Sherilyn's own mother, Connie, actually brought up, which might be the strangest one of them all, but I had to touch on it, at least briefly. Connie claims that her daughter, son-in-law, and granddaughter were on an Oklahoma Colts hit list. Quote, that part of Oklahoma is known for that. Colts and stuff like that. From what I've been told and from what I've read. I was told, around the time of Sherilyn's disappearance, that she was on a Colts hit list. Connie didn't provide the name of the alleged cult, nor have police found any links to one. This theory was only shortly visited, but nothing ever came of it.
This next theory is closer to home. Someone who surprisingly had a motive was Bobby's own father. In the past, he had actually threatened to kill Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison in 2008, and even as recent as the same year they disappeared, 2009. Bobby had finally had enough and taken out a protective order, telling the judge that his father had hit him with a car. In court, the judge had listed reasonings for the protective order listed in the court document from Bobby saying, quote, he is a very dangerous man. He thinks he is above the law. He is involved with prostitutes, gangs, and meth, end quote. The next quote, I am afraid for my life at all times. I am afraid for my family at all times, and we are scared for our lives, end quote. The drama between Bobby and his father actually started further back than just the protective order. Bobby's father owned a gas station, and Bobby sometimes would work for him for free, but claims that he was going to be paid half of the sales made, except his dad never actually paid him, and Bobby was, rightfully so, upset about this. But when Sheriff Beecham looked into this, he actually found a pretty lengthy history on the Jamison side as well. It turns out that they had been known to pull scams on people before to get money. So whether this was actually Bobby trying to get money out of his father or his father not paying, we may never know. Because Bobby's dad passed away only a few months after they went missing in December of 2009. With this particular theory though, if he wasn't in contact with his father, I'm not sure how his dad would have known they were going up in the mountains that day. So did he follow them up there, happen to see them driving and tail them up there, and wait for the perfect time to harm them? This is just a weird one. But with their messy history, it does give a motive.
And finally, for our last theory, a very plausible one. Exposure. Could this all really have been as innocent as just getting lost and passing away from the elements? Is that why all their belongings were left behind? Perhaps they intended on going up a little trail or to see something close by and just got turned around. But then, why not bring your dog? Is that a sign you intended to be right back, or a sign you were forced away from your vehicle and your precious dog? It was fall though, and it's weird that they didn't bring their jackets, although they could have headed out in warm clothing, once again, intending on being gone just briefly. Not too long after the murders, Sheriff Beecham retired, leaving behind many questions that he knows he shares with others. He says he wishes he could have been the one to solve it, but has hope that all of the clues and leads they have will eventually lead somewhere, even if it wasn't under his watch. His own daughter was the same age as Madison when she went missing, and he has always had a close connection with this case. Until someone comes forward, we're all just waiting.
So that's the case of the Jamison family. Would love to know your thoughts.
Probably what a lot of people are thinking is,
What the
happened?
fuck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some variation of what the fuck.
Yeah, and who the fuck and why the fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't love, this sounds so bad, but I don't, the stories that stick with me the most or keep me up or keep my brain working the most are not these type. But because of such the weird circumstances, this one has been, I've heard it for years now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. The one with the dog and the cash in the bag and
yeah,
still don't know what happened.
That's like, it reminds me of a couple other cases because you're like it seems like it could be very straightforward. Like
Which usually
the exposure
what's that saying? The simplest answer usually
is
the answer or
commonly
something.
the
Shit,
answer,
I don't
something
fucking
like
know.
that. But
Something
then
smart.
things are there that make you think, well, that doesn't make sense though. Like we talked about in that last theory, where it's what's with all the money and also leaving the dog behind. Now the money, maybe I could understand if they, because the idea is that they were going out there to look at property. Is that right?
Right. But they were like living paycheck to paycheck. So people are like, where the fuck did they get this money from? Every avenue, and I think it's even, if you look this up online, I should have involved this quote, but the sheriff that was involved, Israel Beecham, we mentioned him a few times, he even said a lot of people, a lot of policemen, investigators would love to have this many leads to follow. Like, they would love to be in my position right now where they have all these different trails to follow.
Yeah.
But none of them lead anywhere.
Yeah, and my biggest takeaway anytime like you see this case getting covered is that there is no cause of death.
Right.
Like that's the one missing link to like whatever lead is the correct lead. It's just like, how did they die?
Yeah.
And
And
if
also,
you knew how, then you could
how
follow
are their
that all the way
bodies
back.
missed over the years when they're less than 3 miles away from their car?
Yeah. I mean,
and also another thing I think of at least is, I've never been in this position before, where if you think about the most likely route being exposure, right?
Yeah.
You get turned around, it's fall in Oklahoma, you're out in the mountains, you're probably freezing. Who knows, maybe you were on your way home and you decided to stop off and like, oh, let's go take a picture up here or something.
Yeah.
Or whatever, right? You get out and you're like, let's just go look at this thing, or I don't fucking know. Seems weird to lock your car when you're out there alone, but
$32,000 in cash, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Last thing you want is some random
right out in the woods or whatever. Who fucking
if there's
knows?
people hiking, they're not going to be at their car anytime soon.
Who knows? To go out there, and then I just find it so weird that if you're out there and you're worried about being cold or whatever it is, that someone didn't like try to go for help. I find it so weird that the family was all found together.
Right.
Their skeletons were all found together, which I think if it was my kid, if I was whatever, right? Especially like if someone had back problems or whatever. One of them had back problems, right? The dad.
Yeah.
And the other one's going to go off and like try to find help maybe.
Yeah, no,
how are you all found in the same spot?
Yeah, you just give up,
I would try to go hike out and find help and like die by myself. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I don't know though. Once again.
It's tough because, to me, I don't know. Like, if we go through
everything,
all of the things, like.
It takes so long.
The money adds up in the fact that they want to buy property. I'm not saying that where the money came from, that's the big question.
Right.
And that's where it could lead to be like, well, that means there might be more powerful
people involved. If it wasn't for the whole property thing, right?
You would be like, what the fuck is this money? Yeah. But then leaving the dog in the car doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
If you're going to bring your daughter, you might
and
as well
also,
bring the dog too.
If the whole, the dog thing doesn't quite make sense murder-suicide-wise. Because why would you bring your dog if you're going to kill yourself? Why would you care about your truck if you're going to kill your family? And why would you lock it up?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can we just shout out the dog, though, for surviving?
Shout out
to the dog.
Maisie.
How long was it? 80 days or something like that?
No, 8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It wouldn't be alive. It wouldn't be alive.
Why did... Okay.
80
8 days? But still, 8 days, you can leave a dog in a car for 3 hours and it could die.
And someone will break your windows.
Yeah. Yeah, around here
You'll
for
get
sure.
The cops called.
But 8 days, no food. Like, you can't even...
there had to have been something in there, right?
Yeah, I'm sure found stuff to eat. But yeah, shout out to Maisie.
Shout out Maisie.
I know you're listening.
Eating the seat cushions. So, yeah. So if you guys know anything, or if you have seen anything, if you guys are like these deep web people that are on websites,
there's
chances are if you've been listening to any of the cases we've done, which have been done before, then you're people that have looked up different websites, different stuff. We can't be the only people that are fall victims to wormhole
sure there's
stuff.
a ton of people out there that have way better theories than anything that's like being reported on.
I don't know about way better, but maybe creative,
more informative.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not
because there's only so many routes you can go with this. Yeah.
Creative.
There could be stuff we're not even
Gosh.
thinking about, or there could be details we don't even know of.
That's what's always interesting. And you kind of mentioned it. If you're in that area, like, there's not a lot of, maybe it's a thing to always keep cash on hand in Oklahoma. Like
$32,000.
Listen, I'm not saying a ton of
I
cash.
hate when I
but-
forget my 32 grand in my truck.
Who knows though?
wish I had
If
those
you guys are
powers.
from that area, let us know.
Yeah.
Obviously, reach out on like Instagram or something. But like, yeah, is there anything that you guys can think of that it's like this is actually it makes sense? Like, oh, my grandparents do this all the time. Not like go out in the woods or something, but just something that's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we probably would have heard of it already.
Well, whatever.
through the investigation,
I still
but-
want to hear and interact.
Yeah. So there it is. The
There it
Jamison
is.
family mystery, really.
Yeah, a mystery.
There's really no idea.
It's titled
what
as murders
happened.
anywhere you go, but who really knows? I don't know.
You just don't know. It's
No.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully though, some sort of science or analyzation tools will like provide any insight as to like what could have happened to them.
Yeah, but let me bring this back, you guys, to a very positive area. I am
Yeah, that's where we were
so
headed.
excited to be doing this again. It's a lot, and we've been sick 9 million times since we've started this, like 2 years,
True.
1.5 years ago, whatever it
True.
is. Like every time I feel normal, just Satan just creeps right back up and is like, "What's up, bitch?" And I'm back to having pneumonia or the
Yeah.
fucking Spanish flu or whatever it is, right?
Spanish pneumonia.
The black lung. I don't even know. Like everything you can think of. Bird flu.
But we're
like
back.
swine
But we're
flu,
back.
All the flus.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then I get it.
Anything.
a
Yeah.
week
And
or two
then
later.
Riley gets it. And then, yeah. So it's been so long. We've had so many people. And by that, I mean like 10, but that's a lot
That's-
for us to reach out,
that's
ask
more
how
people
we're
we know
doing. People are
personally, so.
amazing. It's true. I don't have no friends in real life. So it's so nice. Yeah, and it just feels so good to be back, I guess.
I
I'm
agree.
not
I agree.
promising another episode will be like out like in even right after this.
Yeah, we're
But we have to inch back into this, you guys.
yes, and we've
Slow
actually
and steady.
discussed because we're going to be coming up on season 2 finale here soon. We haven't nailed down exactly which episode will be.
I have an idea.
Will be the finale. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we've been working our way towards it, and I agree. I'm also very happy to be back, and
Yeah.
hopefully you guys
It
can
feels so right. you
enjoy what
guys.
we're bringing to
If
you.
everyone could just get together and make it so that we could just do this as like a job, I
Forever?
will put stuff out every 20 minutes.
Okay, well, how about we get
Patreon.
on that? Whoa, jumping a little ahead of
Yeah,
us now,
if
but
anyone wants to leave me $32,000 in
yeah,
cash,
for real,
on my
yes.
front
Actually,
doorstep.
though, no. If there is, obviously we're getting back on the train here.
We're trying,
getting things back and
people.
going, and you know what? Patreon's an idea that we can, I guess,
Yeah, we'll
consider
think
in the
about it.
future. If
But
you
yeah.
guys are like, yeah, we would definitely.
I've
like,
had people say they
what is
would
it, like
before.
$3 or $5
I've had
a month,
people
something
like,
like that?
seriously, yeah. I've had people like 5 episodes in be like, "I'll pay for stuff." I'm like, "Oh wow, okay, thank
okay,
you."
all right. So we are definitely getting very
We'll
far
think
away from
about
the Jamison family mystery,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I do want to say, or I do want to no, you know what? No, I'm gonna save it for off the record.
Ooh, okay.
That means just not being recorded.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway.
I think we know that.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I don't really have much else to say on the record. Do you?
Okay, no.
Nope. All right then. Well, this has been another episode of the True Crime Banter podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Adios.